He was there, Scully. He was in the house. He took Samantha.
In your dream, Mulder. It was a dream. Your mind made it up.
A dream is an answer to a question we haven't yet figured out how to ask, right? Something buried in your subconscious. You heard him in there. He knew something. He mentioned being on Martha's Vineyard.
Is it a state secret that you lived in Martha's Vineyard?
Well, how would he find out about that?
Through the prison library, the inmates have access to computers and the internet. I checked. Roach logged on just yesterday.
Looking for what?
The server records don't show, but on the net, Mulder, he can find out practically anything about you. Look, he is playing with you, Mulder. He is committing emotional blackmail, and you are letting him. You walked into that room with your heart on your sleeve. He saw vulnerability, and he took advantage of it. You had a dream, a nightmare, and you had it because of all the emotions that this case is stirring up for you, but it was nothing but a dream.
My last dream came true. Scully, do you believe that my sister Samantha was abducted by aliens? Have you ever believed that? No. So what do you think happened to her?
Hello and welcome to Most Unwanted, an X-Files podcast. I'm Chex, joined as ever by Luke in our, what is this, our 5th quarantine episode?
I've lost count.
I don't even know what day it is. Like, all days are blurring into one for me now. Like, at least you've got, like, because you're still working, at least you've got sort of the weekend to sort of judge where you are in the week. I haven't got anything.
I wish I could say I envy that. I wish I could be like, oh, you know, it's a good thing to have, but sometimes I see everybody on the PlayStation and I'm like, oh, god damn it, I wish I was off work as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's ups and downs, like, but oh my god, there are times where I'll just, like, I'll get down on the sofa. Like, I wasn't prepared for not wanting to do anything. That's the one thing I wasn't prepared for, because I'm quite sort of proactive. I've got quite a few hobbies, and there's different things I want to do, and I'm not just sort of stuck doing one thing, and that's fine, that's great. But what I wasn't prepared for was when you have all the time in the world to do them, they become a little less appealing in this weird way. And the amount of times I've sort of started watching a film that I like, or a film that I know I usually like, and I'll get like 10 minutes in, I'm just like, I can't be bothered. I just cannot be bothered to watch this.
Do you know what?
So strange.
It's weird that I'm having the same thing, basically. Like, it's sort of like a lack of wanting to do. So even like with X-Files, like, we'll talk about this episode and what we thought about it. But starting this episode felt like I was just like, I left it until yesterday, and I was just like, oh, I just can't be bothered to watch this. But I thought, I'll do it now. Let's get it watched. And then afterwards, like, well, I'll tell you what I thought about it. But yeah, afterwards.
I think it is very important to sort of, you've just got to try and push through that barrier.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, like, there's films I know I love, and I sometimes I push myself through them, and I do love them, and it's great, and I enjoyed some time watching them. But it's just getting the motivation to watch them, and that's such a strange thing when you've got all the time in the world to watch them. Do you know what I mean? I
think when you like book time off from work, you sort of, in your head, you sort of mentally prepare yourself to block out that time to do things, like whether it's do something around the house, go on a holiday, whatever. Like, you sort of blocked out this time and you know what you're planning to do. Whereas all of a sudden you're thrust this time, you know what I mean? It's just landed in your lap, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll do this to fill the time, and it's not your choice to do this, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And on the flip side of that as well is, I feel really weird complaining about it, because I've got a lot of friends that are on the front line at the moment, and I even on our Twitter, one of our listeners is on the front line at the moment, and you just sort of feel to yourself, God, like, you know what I mean? Like,
it could be much worse.
What are we complaining about? Do you know what I mean? And it's really strange. It's a weird feeling to have. But I was glad that we had them. I always look forward to this, so catching up with you. And then it certainly gives us something to do. And yeah, I was looking forward to this episode. Do you want to get straight into it?
Yeah, might as well.
10th episode of season 4. Originally aired on December 15th, 1996. Written by Vince Gilligan and directed by Rob Bowman. And it is entitled Paper Hearts.
We were wildly off our guesses from the end of last week.
It certainly was. It was nothing like what we thought.
But I'm pleasantly surprised, though.
Yeah, the one thing we got right is that it was a Monster of the Week episode.
Yeah.
But then it had some sort of mythology sort of tied into it, which was interesting to see.
I was really surprised at how much it was tied into the bigger sort of story.
Yeah, exactly. And well, we'll get into it. I was going to start talking as if we'd finished the episode.
A really short one this week.
Yeah, and I liked it. And this week, we start with what turns out to be a dream. It's a dream of Mulder waking up in the middle of the night by what looks like a red laser pen.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And this red laser pen, it basically takes him on this wild goose chase to this park, and occasionally it'll sort of stop on things, and it'll sometimes like land on the surface and write Mad Hatter and stuff like that.
Mm.
And eventually, but basically the long and short of it is it leads him to this park, leads him out into behind this tree in the woods, and there's a girl there, a blonde girl, and the laser pen shows a heart on her stomach, well, where a heart should be on her chest, should say, and then the ground swallows her up, and Mulder wakes up.
Yeah. It was very Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought this opening sequence, it looked quite similar to how that's sort of filmed.
I probably quite not doesn't make me look very good. But I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street properly.
I've never seen one all the way through. I've just seen like the bits where they're in dreams and stuff like that. But it reminded me a lot of those scenes. Yeah,
definitely. I thought the red laser pen was a interesting way of sort of showing someone being led. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't have because they find out pretty quickly that it's this killer's involved.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like the obvious choice to have him in Mulder's dream, because it's not like a secret. But they go with this red laser pen, which is very strange. I suppose it's like to sort of show that it's a bit of Mulder's subconscious rather than him being led, and it leaves it sort of ambiguous.
I suppose it's to try and like build it up to a sort of middle reveal, I suppose, or something like that. Yeah. I guess. But yeah, it's I did quite like this sequence though. It was quite well done.
Yeah, definitely. Well, once Mulder wakes up, he's quite shaken by the dream, and he thinks that he basically follows his own footsteps from his dream, and he goes to the same spot and can't find anything. But what he does, he gets a team out to sort of is it called excavate? Is that the right word?
Excavate, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they're looking, and him trying to explain to Scully that this is all based off one of his dreams is a great moment. But eventually, they do find a skull, and then we cut to the title screens. So obviously, somehow Mulder's found out by his dream that this girl's here.
Yeah,
it seemed a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. I mean, he's right in the end, but imagine being on the other end of this phone call. We need you to come out to do some excavation work. Okay, what's the reason? I had a dream. What?
Not only that, they state in there that it's Sunday 5 a.m. that he made the call.
Yeah.
You'd be like, this guy's got to go. This guy has got to go.
Well, by the end of the episode, I'm very surprised that he's not been sacked, to be honest.
Very true. There's a lot of things he gets wrong here, or goes a little bit too far.
Yeah.
So after the title screen, we basically learn that Mulder knows a lot more about this girl than seems possible at first sight. He starts getting involved with the crime scene himself, even though they advise him not to. And Scully's trying to sort of say to him, let them do their job, but he basically tells her that he already knows how she was killed. She was strangled, and he also says that a bit of her shirt will be cut out in a heart shape.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains, and this all turns out to be true. He digs with his own hands and finds the heart-shaped hole in her shirt. And he explains that he knows this because it was the MO of a killer that he'd locked up a long time ago called John Lee Roche. And it was apparently between 79 and 1990, was it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, 79 and 1990.
Yeah. And so he goes on to explain that during those years, Roche used to abduct girls between 8 and 10 from their homes, strangle them, cut a heart-shaped piece of fabric, and keep that as a trophy. And so he knew straight away that this was that same guy. The thing was, they never found the trophies, so they never knew how many girls there was, and he always had the suspicion that if he ever found the trophies, he would know how many there was, and that they hadn't missed any.
Yeah.
And obviously, now they know that they may have missed more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder how often this happens, like where they sort of... because you do hear about like serial killers sort of getting pegged for cases later on and stuff like that after they've already been convicted because other things crop up. So, yeah, I wonder how common this is.
I imagine, I don't know how common serial killings are, really.
Well, true, yeah.
But, like, I know I was watching, like, when I was watching some documentaries on Ted Bundy, it was interesting to hear that the amount of times he confessed to the ones that was known, and then another one would come out and he confessed to that too. And so, like, you kind of sat there thinking to yourself, I bet you there's more. I bet you there's a load more that he's just not confessed to. You know what I mean? Like, it just it never got discovered, so he never brought it up. Yeah.
It's a strange mentality, isn't it? Because surely if you've got caught and they say, oh, it's life with no parole or something, you just think, might as well just give the lot up, you know what I mean, at this point. If they sort of see glory in it, you know what I mean, surely you want to be like, okay, there's actually 50 more and you didn't get them or something like that.
See, you'd think that, but then if you start looking really into it, it's difficult to get into the mind of a person like that anyway, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
That's the way me and you would be, but like they're not like me and you, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
if we were serial killers...
Yeah, exactly. But if we were serial killers, like, can you have like a logical serial killer? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like, it doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron. So, what I did want to say before we carried on, pretty dark subject matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's down that same kind of avenue that we had before, where it's like an X-File that doesn't. I mean, later on, it has some kind of like paranormal aspect to it, but for 75% of this episode, this is just something that could happen now. You know what I mean? Like, in this day and age, like this kind of story could happen and has happened.
Yeah, I mean, a bold choice to go for someone who exclusively kills children as well.
Yeah.
And not only that, there is one scene where he refers to himself as a molester.
Yeah.
Which they don't really touch upon that anymore.
No.
But I was like, oh god, like, this is weird, because I know I'm jumping ahead, but the weird thing is they actually cast quite a likable bloke to play the guy who did it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they always say that about like a lot of serial killers though. They have charm. Like Ted Bundy's the classic one, isn't he? Where, you know, they were all like, yeah.
So yeah, we'll carry on through the episode. Obviously, where was I? Mulder is concerned they've missed more because they found this missing girl. And it's not helped by the fact that when they identify the girl, they go to tell her father about the fact that they found the body. And he mentions to Mulder, well, how many more of these calls are you going to make? Because he assumes they found a lot more, which I think in Mulder's mind, he's got like this weird guilt throughout this episode that he feels like he's letting whoever he's not found down and their families down. Yeah.
I did like this opening scene as well when they go to visit. I can't remember the guy's name. Frank, I've got it on there.
Did he mention it?
I don't know. It's in the notes. It says Frank Sparks, but I don't know if that's ever mentioned. But yeah, when they first go to visit him, it's quite a picturesque scene, like blue skies, like, and it's your classic American sort of like suburb, and then just with the two agents there, it just looked so sinister with these two agents on the doorstep of this place. And again, it added to this like dream kind of feel to the episode. Obviously, they're not trying to say this is a dream, but it made everything look a bit more on theme with the episode, I guess.
Yeah. And the father of the child does mention in his sort of when he's trying to sort of come to terms with it, he does mention about like the ambiguity and the almost like not knowing actually helped him, which I think is a theme throughout the episode as well.
Yeah.
Because he mentions that he always thought that knowing whether she was dead or not would help, but now that he does know, he kind of wants to go back to not knowing.
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting little. I'd not even thought about that until now, but it kind of crops up, that sort of feeling kind of crops up throughout. And so yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention was this one death proves that he'd been beginning his crimes from 1975.
Yeah.
So it was earlier than Mulder suspected, which will become important because when it starts to involve Mulder's life, then that year is definitely of interest to him.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he has another dream, and it's a very similar dream, but the light just leads to the car that was that the serial killer was using, Wash was using, and so Mulder wakes up and he has the idea that this is where he's going to have left the hearts because, well, I suppose we better go through what this guy is. He's a salesman. He sells vacuum cleaners. Around and so that's why he travels a lot, and he's killed girls from all around the United States.
Yeah. This is a bit of it's a bit different because he sort of daydreams this one, doesn't he? Like it's not a full-on dream. Doesn't it happen as he's walking back to the car?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I didn't really sort of differentiate them, I suppose, but it's subconscious, I suppose, that this is all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But they do keep on referring to them as dreams because they sort of Scully has this sort of thought process throughout that. Let me see if I can remember this correctly. That a dream is an answer to a question you've not yet figured out how to ask.
Yeah, yeah. They say that.
It implies that this is still a dream of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something in your subconscious, I suppose. So yeah.
But so they have this idea. Let's go figure out this car. They find out that the car was sold to this random guy. I don't think it really matters who he is. He's more the guy that they sold to is more interested in the fact that he's got a cool car that a serial killer owns.
Yeah, I thought that was really weird because when he was like, "Oh, did the serial killer really own this?" I wouldn't be stoked about that. I'd be like, "I want to sell this straight away."
I don't know. I don't know. I think I'd be interested. I wouldn't go out and purposely try and find a car like that. But if you told me, if like my house, if you told me there was a serial killer no, it's a bit different today. Yeah, actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
that's what I was going to say. All I could think about is I wouldn't really want to have a car where potentially children had been sexually assaulted in. I was like, nah, get rid of that.
That made me look really bad. I was looking at the cool aspect of it. Like I wasn't thinking about that.
You was thinking like Jason from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, like a slapper.
Yeah. Oh god, it's more like bloody.
Yeah, I'd probably sell the car as well. Thinking about it.
As soon as they turned up as well, he was like, "Oh, can I take a look at your car?" And I was like, "This guy's car's gonna get wrecked."
Well, I mean, Mulder goes to town and he starts getting a knife out and tearing all the upholstery up, trying to find these hearts that he's looking for. And this is the sort of first indication that Mulder is a little bit too personally invested in this case because he breaks a lot of rules in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, he goes incredibly maverick to the point where later on there's the classic scene of the superintendent sort of hammering down for going so maverick. Like Skinner plays that part, and it's like it also almost becomes kind of a cliche how off the rails Mulder becomes at this point.
Well, we've seen it in the past, haven't we? Whenever it comes down to his personal circumstance, he kind of just forgets he's an agent, and he starts to become like this one-man army trying to solve his own case.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, I mean, it's got him in trouble in the past, and it seems to get him in trouble in this episode too. They find the heart in the hood of the car. It's in an Alice in Wonderland book, and there's 16 hearts in there, which, by the process of elimination, it means that there's two victims that they've not yet received. Well, not yet found, should I say. So the next logical step Scully and Mulder go to interview Roche himself in jail. And I've not put it in my notes. Is this the one where he's playing basketball?
Yeah, he's playing basketball in the court. Yeah.
So basically, he's throughout this very likable, very charismatic,
very blasé about what he's talking about.
Very, very much so, and he plays games. He's always playing a game with Mulder, to the point where this is shown at face value, where Mulder asks him for the information that he needs, and he says, well, if you can make this shot from like a 3-pointer, then you can get the information. Mulder makes it, and this is where he says,
how about this? Sink one from there and I'll tell you. Trust a child molester? You bring my hearts and give them back to me? I'll tell you everything you want to know. Coming out.
Really dark.
Yeah.
But very, contrast that with his sort of light and almost jovial demeanour. It was made for a very interesting villain, I thought.
Yeah, he's a great villain, and it's got to be said, I think it's the guy's name who plays him is, I think it's Tom Noonan. I thought he played this character perfectly. And there's a note later on that sort of implies why. But we'll get to that. But yeah, I thought throughout this. What's that? No, he's not a child molester. Well, I mean that wasn't included on the what's it?
Standards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm neither confirming or denying anything.
I don't think you can say that.
That does sound accusatory.
All Luke's saying is he was the perfect choice for this role.
When I get to the note, it'll be a lot less sinister. But yeah, I mean,
let's hope so.
I'm going to leave the sinister part in now because I love suspense. But yeah, I thought he was really, really good in this role. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Agreed. During this scene, he basically refuses to help them in any way. He does make one strange comment that he understands why Mulder's taking all of this so personally, which doesn't really. I didn't pick up on anything strange about that. So carry on.
It was very subtle how he just drops that in.
I didn't pick up on it, to be honest with you. But then it becomes very clear when, in the next scene, Mulder has another dream, and in this dream he goes back to 1973 when Samantha gets abducted.
Yeah,
and it's very. We've seen this before. We know how it goes, and it goes beat for beat the way we know it to go. The only difference is Mulder's living it at his adult self. But then the lights come down, and Roche turns up. He bursts through the door, and obviously Mulder's very confused by this. And at this point, you're sort of realizing that it's implying that Samantha was never abducted by aliens. She was actually abducted by this guy. Yeah.
I thought this was a really good twist. I loved how they sort of weaved. So this is a standalone episode essentially, but it's tied into this story that we've known about for 2 series now. And it's like, I didn't know we'd get this kind of tie-in in a Monster of the Week episode. It's really thrown out this typical formula of the Monster of the Weeks.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, and it did make, like you say, I wasn't expecting this. Very good twist. So, now Mulder gets very personally involved because now Mulder goes back to Roche and he says that, he basically turns around and says that, why did you ask me that? Why did you say to me that this was personal for me? And Roche is just playing with him. He's just he's toying with him. I said, I think he never gives information willingly. But he doesn't hold back information either.
Yeah.
But he goes on to say, when Mulder sort of starts bringing up his sister, he goes on to say that he in 1973 he was in Martha's Vineyard, and he actually sold a vacuum to Mulder's father before Samantha's disappearance. He starts to avoid questions again, and Mulder then punches him in the face.
Yeah, absolutely loose cannons him straight in the face.
Yeah, I loved Scully's line here because an officer comes in, Ross tells on him, and the officer sort of says, I didn't see anything, taking the officer's side. But Scully straight away, without missing a beat, says, well, I did. Because I love that. I don't know why, but this one line, it just made me look that she's not a cop looking out for another cop. She's a friend wanting her friend to understand his actions.
Yeah, exactly.
If they was just two partners doing a job together, then the natural thing would be to rally round each other, close ranks, and sort of support each other professionally. But that's not who they are. They're friends, and she's just seen her friend lose control, and she wants to hold them to account for that.
Well, exactly, and she knows about his history as well, so she knows why he's doing this, and is sort of telling him he needs to be better than this, basically.
Yeah, which I love. I love that. I love the fact they don't just sort of allow each other to do stuff like this. They expect better from each other, and they want each other to grow, which is a great relationship, really.
Yeah.
She tries to convince him that these dreams, like I said earlier, are answers that we didn't know how to ask the question for. She believes that he's kind of solving the case in his own subconscious. He's got the facts in his head, and then as he's dreaming, he's running through it because it's so personal to him. He's running through it and he's solving it himself. But with regards to this Samantha thing, she believes that it's just his Ross manipulating him, basically.
Yeah.
She mentions that he has access to the library, and all he needs to do is search Mulder's name, and she finds out everything. He finds out everything about him. And not only that, he logged into the library yesterday.
Yeah. I did like in this bit as well, where you can see Mulder starting to lose faith a bit in his beliefs, because he starts asking Scully if she's ever believed that his sister was abducted by aliens, and he's trying to say, well, it's very possible that this could have happened, and it's weird to see Mulder become so grounded and down to earth about what he believes.
Yeah, but I'll twist that on its head a little bit, and what I'm going to suggest to you is this episode also proves something that we've always known about Mulder as well, which is he's not blinded by this alien theory. His whole thing has been from day one that he wants to know the truth.
Yeah.
Never been about aliens, and aliens is a part of it, and aliens is a part about is a big part about this show because that's what it looks like it's going to be. But it's never been about aliens specifically. It's always been about the truth that he wants to find. And I did find it very interesting that even though the truth, in this case, seemed to lead him down a path that he didn't have any idea of before, and seemed to sort of get rid of all of his preconceived ideas of what happened that night, he didn't fight it. He wants to follow it to its logical conclusion, because that's where the quest for the truth was taking him. And I found that very interesting. Yeah. Not surprising, but I think the kind of character he is, you would expect him almost to blindly follow this alien theory. But that's not what Mulder's about. Mulder's about finding the truth no matter where that road takes him.
I mean, it ultimately shows that he is an agent, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what he's investigating, he just, like you said, he just wants to find the truth.
And so, I feel like low-key, you get so much character development in this episode.
Yeah. There's a lot between all... Yeah.
In the next scene, Mulder visits his family home. It looks like he sneaks in, to be honest. It looks like he sneaks in when his mum's asleep. And he's rooting for the basement, but Mulder comes down and basically says she knows it's him somehow.
I know, yeah. I'd come down with a baseball bat and be like, get it, mate.
You definitely would. But she sort of asks what he's doing, and he's just asking questions about... I'm not sure. What's he originally looking for? I can't remember.
He's
looking for Samantha's dress, isn't he?
Yeah, he's trying to compare the fabrics, basically.
Yeah, but she doesn't recognise either of the fabrics. And so he sort of starts to get relieved, and then he asks whether Dad ever bought a vacuum cleaner from you. And she said, yeah, it's under the stairs. And so he gets it out, and he realises it's the same vacuums that Ross sells. And so Wash was definitely in the house at some point in their history, making it a lot more believable that this is true.
Yeah, which is interesting because, like, I'm just thinking about it now. It's like, so it's put him in this sort of timeline and in the house and everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird that they set all that up and then he didn't do anything again at the end of it, or that's the implication, I guess.
Yeah, it's strange. Well, we might as well get into this now. They put this forward, this power. You know what? It's going to be difficult to explain around it. We'll get to it when we get at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Skinner finds out that Mulder attacked a prisoner and is fuming at him. Basically denies him any further access to the case, but Scully manages to convince him that, well, he's personally involved, but also no one knows Rosh like Mulder does, and if anyone's going to find these victims, it's going to be Mulder. So he finally does allow him to keep interviewing Rosh, but on the proviso that Scully keeps tabs on him.
Yeah, this was the Lethal Weapon scene where it's like, I'll have your badge.
But again, like, Mulder puts him in such difficulty. It's so hard to support Mulder.
Yeah, like I said, I have my own feelings at the end of the episode, but yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So they go back to interview Rosh, and they bring with them the trophies, the heart cutouts, and Mulder wants to know about Samantha, basically. And Rosh is evasive at first, but then he starts describing the night that Samantha was abducted and basically confirms that he did it. He goes into such crazy detail. He knows what game they were playing. He knows what he was watching on television. He knows what Mulder was saying at the time. He says that he was outside the window when all this was going on, so he knows. Which is like, basically, it's cut and dry then, that he must have abducted Samantha at this point.
It made me think, to be fair, I was like, this is like quite in depth. It's like maybe he has. Yeah,
definitely. But he refused to tell Mulder which one of the hearts, or where Samantha was buried, to prove it. And if she was one of the victims, which one of the hearts is hers, he gives them a 50-50 chance. He basically says, you choose a heart, and if it's Samantha, I'll tell you where she is. If it's not, I'll tell you where the other victim is. Either way, you win. And so Mulder takes a shot in the dark and picks one of the hearts. But it turns out that it's not Samantha. It is another victim now. They do find another young girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He finds out because she apparently Samantha broke her collarbone, didn't she? And that didn't match up.
Yeah. And quite an emotional scene where they know they've got to go back to Rosh. They know that he's toying with them. But as the episode goes on, Mulder's sort of losing more and more control of his actions. He's starting to sort of just get it into his head that he needs to know what's going on. And like, almost like the desperation, like when they're digging the body up, he says to Scully, just please help me. But they didn't wait for a team. They just dug it up with their hands.
Yeah. It's you can tell the desperation's kicking in there.
Yeah, it was kind of sad to see, like, when he, like, just said to Scully, oh, just help me, Scully. Like, he wasn't asking, like, as an agent, he was asking as a friend, just please help me. Because he's terrified of finding Samantha under there. But as I say, they inevitably do return to Rosh, who's, again, in a very jovial mood.
Mm-hmm.
But he's refusing to give them any more information.
He does tell them who that person was.
Yes. He tells them who that was, but he won't tell them about the 15... Was it 16 hearts?
Yeah, 16th, yeah.
He won't tell them about the 16th victim. His proviso for it is, well, if you take me, I will tell you, and I will take you to the scene of the crime myself, if you allow me. Scully advises against it, says that if you know how this works, if you give him this, he will string you along forever, and he'll just keep on making demands, and you'll keep on having to make them. You know this, you've done it a million times before, we'll find another way. But Mulder goes on his own accord and makes a call to the judge and convinces the judge to give him release for a few days. Yeah,
we did learn a little fact here as well. Mulder has goldfish behind him. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He had a little tank in his apartment, and I was like, oh, I guess he's got pets.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? I was gonna say, like, how does it? Like, yeah, how would you have time to like feed them and stuff?
I thought that. I thought that. I was like, these fish would be dead. He's never there.
Sam, now in a situation where Skinner's found out about Scully didn't know about Mulder releasing him. Skinner finds out and he's not too happy. He grabs his... Scully says, I'll get him back, and Skinner grabs his gun and goes, I'll get him back. I'll do this myself.
Yeah, you know you messed up when Dad's coming.
Exactly. So he's on his way. Mulder... We cut to Mulder on the plane with Rosh, and this is quite a horrible scene. They're travelling to Martha's vineyard, or vineyard, I should say, and on the plane on the way there, it's really... it's quite horrible, to be honest. Like, he asks to go to the toilet, Mulder gets caught up by the food trolley, and even then he starts talking to this little girl on the plane, and even though it's so innocent, your skin crawls when he's talking to her.
That's the thing. When you know all of the pretext behind it, yeah, it just becomes a lot more sinister. Yeah,
and crucially, he manages to ask between her and her mother where they're going and where they live, and he knows details about this family.
Yeah, so there you go. If anyone ever asks you where you're going and where you live, no way. Don't tell them.
No way. They end up in Mulder's old home. So we think. Mulder takes him to his own home and asks him to explain what happened in detail. And Rosh obliges. Again, so jovial, so happy-go-lucky. He sits on the sofa and says, I remember sitting on the sofa selling the vacuum to your mother. I remember standing at this window. I remember the smell when I was at this window waiting. I remember your parents going to your neighbour's house, going in such detail about that night. But Mulder pulls the joker out. He pulls the trump card. He says,
Wrong house. My father bought this house after he and my mother divorced. This house is in West Tisbury. The house that Samantha was abducted from is in Chilmark. That's 6 miles from here. You screwed up. You were never here. You didn't take Samantha.
Wishful thinking.
No, but I think I know what happened. Somehow you got inside my dreams.
Come again?
I profiled you. I got inside your head. Maybe you got inside mine. Maybe some nexus or connection was formed between us. And through that, you got access to my memories of my sister Samantha. And you used them against me for this.
You're just resisting me.
And you're in the wrong house, you stupid son of a bitch. You were never here, you liar.
It's geography, man. It's geography. It was 23 years ago. That was geography we're talking about.
But you remember all the other details so vividly. That's because you watched it through my eyes. Through my dreams.
Brilliant. So good. So basically, he's tricked Rosh himself. And Rosh, he kind of plays it off. He says, well, it was a long time ago. I don't remember all the details. I just remember the actual event. I don't remember the house. But Mulder's convinced now that you never abducted Samantha. Like, you found this information out somehow. He also starts putting this theory together that because they've both been researching each other, they've managed to sort of create like this sort of weird network between them.
Yeah.
And that's how he's managed to get into Mulder's head to give him the information. And that's how he's figured out what happened to Mulder.
They put this theory that their dreams are linked, or something like, and it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I don't really buy this. But then the thing is, if you don't buy this, then you have to assume that he's telling the truth about kidnapping Samantha, which I don't think is true either.
No,
but like it's so wishy-washy. This where it's like, well, we was thinking about each other at the same time, so it's possible we could have created this network between us.
Yeah.
It feels very thrown together, but I don't think it's meant to be, like, set in stone. I think what's happened in this is, in my opinion, I think Rosh has done his research on Mulder, and he's toying with Mulder. He's been playing with him right from the start, and I think he gets more cues from Mulder as to what happened and plays off that rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, there's holes in that theory, because how would he know what they was watching on TV? How would he know what they was playing? And that doesn't make sense. But it just seems like such a cop-out to me to turn on and say, you must have been planting ideas in my mind. You know?
It's definitely the weakest part of the episode for me because it's so under-explained. Like, obviously, we always say you don't have to explain everything, but you have to explain some things as to where this idea's come from.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they do leave it ambiguous. They leave it so that you're sort of questioning whether it is this thing or whether Rosh did it or whether it's a mixture of the two or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. I have a higher rating of the episode if I'm led to believe that Rosh is toying with Mulder.
I see. Personally, I would have liked. Do you know how in a lot of episodes, Mulder goes and explains the historical context of this crazy theory, and he'd be like, I don't know, Tibetan monks used to do these things or something like that.
Yeah.
If he'd have said something like that, I'd be like, oh, okay, it's something that, is this paranormal thing from the past. I'd be like, that's more believable. But it's because he just literally drops it out of nowhere. We have this mind link, and it's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. If you give it some context, we as an audience know it exists in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And you find it a lot easier to get on board with that.
Yeah, I would have preferred that, but hey, we didn't get it.
No, and like I said, if you're not going to do that, don't include it at all. Like, let's have Rosh just be this insane madman that toys with all of his victims, and he's just managed to find out the information from police reports or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be way more.
There you go. Yeah, say his cousin's an officer. I don't know, something like that, and that's how he found the details out. It's nice and simple, but then that way, he wasn't involved in the case at all, but he's been toying with Mulder to try and get what he wants. It's incredible. Yeah.
It makes him a lot more, dangerous because it shows you that he's quite clever in what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So we start heading towards the climax of this episode. Mulder's plans to return Rosh to jail because he basically says, "You're not worth my time anymore." He chains him up to the bed in the motel, and he has a final dream, and the dream's of Samantha, and basically him holding Samantha, and sorry, no, it's not. It's yes, it is.
Yeah.
He finds her in the car, doesn't he? He finds her in the car, but he rescues her, but he wakes up, and he's the one tied up, and Rosh no longer in the room, which again lends itself to this theory that Rosh can control Mulder's dreams and what he does in his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's looking around. He knows his badge is missing as well as his gun. The worst time in the world for Scully and Skinner to show up. Hey, what's going on? And Mulder's just like this naughty kid with his hand in the cookie jar, and he's just like he basically just sort of he gives Skinner this look as if, you know what happened, I know what happened.
I've messed up here.
Exactly. But he realizes pretty quickly that this guy isn't going to go far. He knows he's going to get caught. He wants to have one last trophy, and he realizes pretty quickly that he's going after Caitlin, the girl on the plane.
Yeah. After this, because there's a part where they're calling, and they find out that his badge has been stolen, and he's found this manifest by using his badge. This Rosh has used Mulder's badge. So he's used FBI information to get information about somebody when he shouldn't have been out in the first place. And as this was all being explained, I was just like, in any law enforcement agency in the world, if this had have happened, you'd be sacked. There's no way you're keeping your job after this.
Exactly. You've literally, a few seconds and you've got the blood of a child on your hands.
Basically, yeah. He didn't even need to have killed this kid. He's abducted a kid when he should have been in jail, and like I said, he's made the FBI look stupid because they basically helped him.
Exactly, and not only that, even if you take the face value exactly the way it played out, what you've got is you've got an FBI agent who instead and a criminal, regardless of what this criminal's done, this criminal's being punished the way that the state has seen fit. You've now got an FBI agent who has assassinated him. And he shouldn't have been out in the world. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many consequences that should come from this.
Yeah, I mean, and I expect none of them to be answered. I imagine him shooting him in the head was a nice bow on this story, but in my head I was like, no way, there's so much fallout from this.
Exactly. Yeah, and honestly, I thought it was, like, funny, like, how much Mulder was messing up, but, like, when you really dig into it, there's no way he'd have a job. There's no way.
Imagine if, like, this happened in, like, just put it in our country. Imagine if the press got hold of that. The people would burn his house down.
Like, yeah, honestly, like, even putting a child at risk like that, it's insane. It just would not happen.
No.
And but imagine, let's carry this sort of analogy on. Imagine it happened. And imagine the press are demanding answers from the police officer in charge. And the police officer comes out and says, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, but I had dreams about my personal life.
I just thought...
And so surely you can understand, because I'm personally involved, this makes it okay.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's not an explanation really. If he's not explaining it to us, the audience, it's definitely not going to explain it to somebody who's got no stakes in this.
So anyway, like you said, Wash tracks down this child. He also manages to get up from it's like a play group that she's in.
Yeah.
He flashes his badge at them and tells them that she needs to go with him. And obviously the teacher complies because it's an FBI agent. Yeah. Like, what do you do at that point? And she's giving herself a really hard time. And lucky Mulder's there to say, "Don't worry, this is on me."
Oh, it's okay. I'm fine now. I'm fine. Don't worry. There, you've absolved me of this.
So yeah, like I said, they realise that they don't think he's travelled far. They don't think he's gone too far out. They actually think that he's staying in the area because he knows he's going to get caught. He just wants this one last victim. But he also does admit to Scully at this point that she was right. Wash was playing him all along, and that he just sort of fell into Wash's plan. So he knows a little bit more about Wash. It's not really a dream at this point, but he just sort of figures out, doesn't he, where he's going to go with them.
Yeah, I think it's implied that because Rosh has got information about him, it also goes both ways, and he's got a connection into his mind, and he just sort of knows where he's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's again one of those weird sort of like a strand of information that doesn't really make sense, but like I think I don't know the exact details, but like something along the line of Alice Street that he's on, and Mulder goes, must be that place because he's got an obsession with the Mad Hatter.
Yeah, that's it.
So they end up searching it, and they end up searching like this camper van sort of scrap heap, if you like, around the back.
Yeah.
Again, Mulder uses his sort of connection with Wash to find the correct camper van, and they have a face-off in this camper van where Wash got the gun held to Caitlin, and Mulder's got the gun held to Wash. And they sort of have this sort of debate where Mulder's again convinced that he didn't have anything to do with Samantha. He says, let's just give me the girl. We don't have to end this like this. But like Wash is saying, he's got nothing to lose, etc. And when it becomes clear that he's about to pull the trigger, like we said earlier, by the way, Skinner and Scully do turn up as well, and they've got the guns trained on him. When he goes about to pull the trigger, Mulder just takes it into his own hands and literally assassinates this guy.
Yeah, shoots him straight in the head.
Yeah.
He did say as well before this, like, he's sort of putting it to Mulder that he's not going to shoot him because then he'll never find out what happened to his sister.
Yeah, so he sort of plays the sort of, like, he still plays the sort of ambiguous, did I not do it? But I think the fact that Mulder shot him in the head kind of sort of symbolises Mulder coming to peace with it.
Yeah.
And saying, I don't need to know, I've got the answer that I want. But yeah, you assume that he will never find out fully what the truth is because, well, he won't. He just killed the guy that's the only guy that's got the answers.
Yeah, and I think that knowing how many series there are and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure that he's not involved because there's a bigger story there. There's no way they'd just leave that dangling carrot, basically.
Exactly, yeah. One thing I did like from this scene was Mulder telling Caitlin to count to 20 before blowing a guy's face off.
Yeah, that'll stop her having nightmares.
Oh my god. So that's basically it for this episode.
Yeah.
What did you think, Luke?
There's the one final scene as well where he's in the FBI headquarters and she goes, they're like talking, like wrapping it up. But the one thing to note from that is what I thought was when Scully and Mulder embrace, like in sort of like a mother-son kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that was another one of those moments where like shippers will be like, oh, what's this?
Yeah. Again, it wasn't exactly romantic. It was just comfort, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, what did you think of the episode as a whole?
I really enjoyed this. Like, and I wasn't expecting to. Like, whenever we come off of like a big mythology arc episode, we tend to get like an episode, a Monster of the Week episode that's sort of it's okay, you know what I mean? Like it's usually between okay and decent, you know what I mean? Like you sort of it's not too bad, but I felt like this one really beat my expectations of it. It was actually quite a good story. It felt a lot like Beyond the Sea in terms of like the story it's telling. This like mind games between one of the main characters and a killer. But I love that this was tied into the bigger story, because I think with that one it was ultimately it was two random people, you know what I mean, like that it was attached to. But with this, yeah, it was tied into this. I thought the villain was just a real piece of shit, in the best way possible. And Mulder was really good as well about this guy who's being slowly manipulated, and then before too long he realises he's getting played. And it just shows a bit more depth to his character as well. So, I really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm going to mirror a lot of what you've said. I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. I think it has its flaws. I think, like I said, logically, a lot of this episode doesn't make sense. But from a pure enjoyment standpoint, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think a lot of that has to go on Tom Noonan, who plays Wash, because I thought he was fascinating. I know I keep mentioning him, but it's because he reminds me of Ted Bundy so much in that charismatic. You almost feel like if you didn't know he did these atrocious crimes and just met him in a bar, you'd probably get along with him. Yeah, it's a weird sort of, and that's really uncomfortable to watch, because you don't want to like him, but you kind of do in a weird way.
It's the best way to play like a serial killer, isn't it? When you have that, when they're likable, because it sort of puts you in a weird position where this person could be someone, as you said, you met in a bar, and it, like in real life, this could happen. You could have met somebody out on a night out who is a horrible human being. Exactly. It sort of makes it more real, I suppose.
Exactly. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'd have liked it better if they hadn't put that weird network idea into it. And I mean, the Mulder discipline procedure doesn't really bother me too much. But it is a funny idea to think I'd like the whole next episode to be Mulder losing his job. And he's got nothing anymore because of all of his acting up in this episode.
That's the thing, and it's like one of those for like typical like TV and Hollywood and stuff like that. This procedure and stuff like you just sort of forget about. Like, but yeah, when you really think about the implications of it, you just go, "There's no way he'd be working."
Not a chance. And I like the idea though. Like so Skinner would get him in, and Skinner would say, "Right, you know this is unacceptable. I know this is unacceptable. We're going to have to let you go." And Mulder goes, "No, just give me one more chance." And so it's like, I've given you 40. Like, you consistently break the rules.
You were in Russia when you weren't meant to be in the last episode. It's but like I said, that's a nitpick, really. I think
it's fine. I like talking about it, but I'm not that much.
Yeah.
Luke's production notes.
So this is the note that I was talking about. So this makes it not sinister. This just makes it more obvious.
Okay.
Paper Hearts was written specifically with Tom Noonan in mind for the role of Rosh, and was amongst the first television work the actor had done.
Wow, I wonder what criteria he had to fulfill to have that episode written about him. What about his life makes them want to write sexual predator role for him?
Well, I'm not saying anything. That's you that's saying things now, and I will not be holding a...
I've simply posed a question.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm sure you can get done for slander for posing a question as well, can't you?
What has he allegedly done?
Poor guy, man.
You brought this up. Don't you dare push this on me.
I was just trying to say that the role was written for him. I didn't want to.
Really strange that's his first acting role, though.
In television. Maybe he's done films, or he's a theatre actor. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah.
Writer Vince Gilligan came up with the concept for the episode when thinking about the series' long-running storyline, The Abduction of Samantha Mulder. Gilligan came up with a story questioning whether Samantha had not been abducted by aliens, but was rather murdered by a child killer instead. He decided to help convince Mulder of this through a series of prophetic dreams.
That's brings me on to another good point where I think this episode does excel. You need something like this to keep the whole Samantha abduction storyline in our heads.
Yeah.
Because as important as it is, I don't think you can get by just mentioning it once every season. I think it does need a sort of a recap of how important this is to Mulder.
At least until like the mystery's explained, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. So I think this episode does that in a really good way, in the sense of it's about that, but not about that as well. Like, it's not an entire episode about it.
The laser lights in Mulder's dreams were influenced by Gilligan's experience with laser holograms while he was a film student. The laser was supposed to be the colour blue, but was changed to red in production to reduce costs. Didn't know a colour?
I've just got this image of Vince Gilligan waking up during his time in studio, and someone across the way of the campus is shining a red light. He's searching through the woods. He's just sending him around the campus. This must mean something.
He's not studied it. It just happened to him.
This is his life story.
I just like the line in that they were supposed to use the colour blue, but changed it to red to reduce costs. When has laser light colour changed costs? That seems strange to me. Surely it's just a lens.
Well, it's not a laser light, is it? Because it's not like it looks like a laser pen, but like it changes shape mid, without any hesitation. So it's got to be some sort of effect to do that. Yeah, I can't imagine why blue would be more expensive, but
it just reminds me of Carl Pilkington. Oh, the yellow trousers are much more expensive. Anyway, wanting to include some kind of fetish for the killer, Gilligan settled on having Rosh cut heart-shaped fragments from his victims' clothing, thinking that having him mutilate his victims' bodies would be going too far.
I thought this was perfect. I thought that's just as sinister, but like you said, without having to sort of show mutilated children on TV. You know what I mean? That's just as sinister, cutting the hard cloths out. And when you see all the hard cloths in sort of a row when Mulder's collecting them all, I thought that's so creepy.
I think they used up all of their mutilated children budget in the in Home. So
yeah, you're allowed one a season, and you went early. That's your fault.
Guest actor Tom Noonan, who played the killer John Lee Rosh, recalled filming the scene in which his character is introduced, playing basketball in prison. Noonan, a capable basketball player, was asked to downplay how well he could play, although he regretted not being able to play against David Duchovny, who had played basketball for Princeton University.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
He feels small to play basketball.
Hey, anyone can dunk. Maybe not me. Maybe not me.
You definitely would not be able to dunk.
But I could be like, go through people's legs. You know what I mean?
Is it Space Jam?
That's my only basketball knowledge. Space Jam.
Live runs off the court. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm like Taz, just starts spinning around.
Oh god.
Episode writer Vince Gilligan and director Rob Bowman asserted that David Duchovny's successful basketball shot in the scene was filmed in just one take without special effects. I
call bullshit.
I mean, anytime you hear that, it always sounds like, yeah, I would say that too.
Yeah.
While the episode was the 8th produced in the series, it was the 10th aired, having been delayed to free up production resources for the 2-part episode Tunguska and Terma.
I think it works well, like you said. I think it's a nice change of pace to have such a heavy episode after the mythology episodes, because usually that doesn't happen. Usually you have this not bad episodes, but you have a palate cleanser where it's easy to sort of digest episodes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's good as well, because this one was sort of it wasn't as the last two were quite like action heavy, whereas this one was just two people playing mind games, you know what I mean? The episode's climactic scene was filmed in a buzz graveyard in Surrey, British Columbia, a location which had been scouted months previously with the intention of eventually included in an episode of the series. Although filming at the location did not even last a full day despite the long wait to use it.
I'd like to correct Luke on this one. It was a bus graveyard.
That's
and
my...
to just let all our international listeners know that it's not England that says buzz. It's the Midlands that say buzz.
I can't... Tash tells me off for it as well, and I don't even realise I'm saying it.
Buzz.
It's the only like Midland like or Black Country dialect thing that I can't get rid of. Like everything else I can sort of talk away, but I always I just say buzz. Can't help it. Onto the Crit X-Files.
It stinks.
Welcome to the Crit X-Files.
What are you rating this one?
Ooh, this one's a tough one. There's definitely factors which I could use to, and quite validly, use to downgrade it. But saying that, I'm just going to go purely based off enjoyment, and I'm going to give it an 8.5.
8.5? But it's fairly good.
Really enjoyed the episode.
We've had a good run of scores, to be fair, in the last few.
Yeah.
I gave it an 8, just on the dot. Because, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good... 8's a good score for me. Like, I think that's a solid episode.
Definitely.
So, IMDb, with 3,133 reviews, gave this an 8.9 out of 10.
Wow. No way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I can see that. I can see why it would be such an enjoyable episode.
We've got some heavy hitters this series.
Yeah, this series has been really good so far.
Yeah. 10 episodes in, and we've already got like some that we could be top of anybody's top 5 list.
Without a doubt. I think our top 5 list is definitely going to change.
Yeah, definitely. Some other notes from the critical reception. Both Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny considered this among the best episodes of the 4th season. Composer Mark Snow was nominated for an Emmy Award for the music he produced for this episode. He said of the episode's music, it was a different kind of texture for the show. Light, magic, nothing terribly threatening. Snow received many requests for a recording of the music used at the end of the episode.
I was going to mention the music, because during all the dream sequences, it was very whimsical. It was like sort of, you can imagine the same sort of music like a film about fairies in the woods. Do you know what I mean? It was very, which contrasted to what it's actually about. It's really quite dark. I found that interesting as well.
I guess it kind of sticks with the dream and the Mad Hatter kind of themes as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, but like you've got like this sort of, the beautiful thing about this episode is the contrast. So it sticks with that until you see a skeleton of a child.
Yeah.
You've got the heart as trophies, but the hearts are cuttings of like these like lovely patterned pajamas. They're like actually quite pretty little sort of almost like you'd find at a craft shop. Do you know what I mean? The contrasts make this episode so much darker than it actually. Well, not that it actually is, but it lulls you into a false sense of security.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Then it jokes with this darkness, so it makes this episode really good.
And finally, oh no, there's two more. And finally, website IGN named Paper Hearts as their 6 favourite standalone episodes of the show, calling it creepy and unsettling, and claiming Noonan's character was one of the most disturbing villains to make an appearance in the series. Noonan's acting has been praised by Vince Gilligan, who said that the understated manner in which Rush was portrayed sends chills down his spine every time.
Yeah, completely agree. He's definitely the stand-up performer.
And that's everything from this week.
Welcome to Dan's Twitter Corner.
So yeah, before we go, I just wanted to quickly read out a few tweets that we got this week. And then, yeah, as always, if you do want to get in touch with us, probably best to just get in touch with us on Twitter. It's most unwanted pod, and we'll be on there for you. So if you do want to get in touch, we can reply on there. So yeah, we've just got a couple I want to mention. I'm not sure whether we mentioned this one a few episodes ago. I can't remember, but I'm going to read it out anyway, just in case. We had a tweet from Green Elf Oz saying, I really enjoyed episode 90. You helped me to appreciate this cigarette smoking man sent to death. It's not one I rewatch often, but I'm going to go back and watch it again now with fresh eyes. I loved all the background and behind-the-scenes information shared. It's given me a new perspective. Thanks. I feel like that's a common thing I've heard from quite a few people, to be honest, where the general consensus is when they're rewatching through seasons, this one's a sort of the cigarette smoking man episode was a sort of episode that they was okay to miss.
Yeah,
which surprised me because I really enjoyed it.
It's strange because I thought this was like a standout episode, one of the better ones that we've seen so far. So I am quite surprised in it.
Perhaps it's just because it literally has nothing to do with the story. Like you could literally, it could literally all come down to it all being false. Do you know what I mean? So
maybe
really make a difference, or not. But I'm glad that like maybe some of our sort of little tidbits throughout the episodes might make it a little bit more interesting for people. And yeah, we had another tweet from Ray saying Tunguska is an exciting episode. She rated 8.5. And then we asked what people were doing in the lockdown. She, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, she said that I'm a nurse, so I'm out there working daily. Wish I could stay home like the others, but this is what I do. I quarantine myself at home to keep my family safe too. So I did tweet back to this, but yeah, I did just want to say on the podcast that I did answer on your behalf as well, Luke, that we're very grateful for the work she's doing, as with anyone that's working on the front line at the moment. Honestly, like, it's at a time where superhero films are like the biggest blockbusters. I think this whole instance shown everybody who the real heroes in the world are. It really has.
Yeah, it's people who don't ever get a shout out as well. Did you watch that music thing that was on the other day on BBC One? I think in America they had something as well with Lady Gaga.
Yes, yeah.
And they're talking about like all the key workers and stuff, and they're mentioning people like they're mentioning bin men, and you're like, yeah, no one ever gives a shout out to the bin men. Somebody's got to do it.
Exactly, it's so true, and I think it's really redefined this whole term of key worker, which hopefully going forward we'll all remember that, and especially people in higher places will remember that as well.
Yeah.
But to you, Ray, and all of our listeners, I'd like to just say again, stay safe. Hope, and this should all be over soon, so hopefully we can just keep on giving you that little bit of entertainment week in, week out. But until next time, it's a bye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me. Why are we doing the two Ronnies now?
It's a goodbye from me.
Things are getting strange, I'm starting to worry.
we go through the cigarettes? What are you doing? We're recording. Talking shit, apparently.
Guess who's making the outtakes this week?